And good morning, everybody. It's your boy AKJ coming to you live with an all new show that we got going. It's more of a hold on, I gotta mute my TV real quick. I got the show that we got going. It's more of a hold on, I gotta mute my TV real quick. But good morning, everybody. It's been going pretty, pretty crazy around here lately. So I just wanted to do a show, in the morning time, 'cause I'm a morning person, and really talk about some things like maybe like the issues that's going on in like the world or pop culture, because I have like things I want to talk about that I didn't get a chance to talk about because of me being afraid of people not liking me because of my opinions, and I just got to a point where I just didn't want to be afraid anymore of just saying what I thought. So today, so this show is called This Week with AKJ, and it just go over like the main events that happened over like this week, and it's gonna happen I'm trying to think either every Sunday or every like Monday, something like that. But we're gonna talk about everything that happened this past week. This week, we got a chance to see the Build Back Better bill be passed by the House. We also saw the Kyle Rittenhouse trial come to an end with him not being guilty. And also we are in the closing trials of Ahmaud Arbery. Now, there's a couple of things that I wanted to go over, with you guys, like with the Build Back Better plan, because I'm not sure exactly what's in it. But I just want to go over like some videos to where like we can learn what's exactly in the bill, so that we can learn together on what it is. And as far as like the Kyle Rittenhouse debacle, I have some questions. I do believe that he should have been, convicted of murder for the first shot. But as for like the second shot, like I just need to be inside like the courtroom to know, exactly what happened. Now, I do have a problem with him saying that he was trying to self-defend himself when you are the only person with a gun. You know what I'm saying? Like with a a high capacity gun too at that. So I'm trying to understand like how you were afraid of somebody's somebody when you have a gun, literally. But I did have some questions about what made him shoot the first shot, because in like the black community, like we don't go towards like where the gunshots are going. So for people to go after somebody because they had a gun just wasn't a smart thing to do, in my opinion. And people lost their lives because of that. So, but the first thing is first, the Build Back Better plan, which was passed by the House this week, mostly by Democrats. I think all were passed by Democrats, and I don't know exactly what's in the bill. So I found a couple of videos I would like us to watch to really get a good feel of what the Build Back Better plan is and what we should expect inside there. So I'm trying to I found some videos. And we're gonna take a look back. So I found one. I guess people were worried about if it will add inflation. Excuse me. And I don't see why people are getting that. So we're gonna take a look at this and let's take a look at this.
The second installment of President Biden's domestic agenda finally cleared its first major hurdle in the House. The $1.6 trillion bill includes everything from education to healthcare to fighting climate change. But what effect will this have on the overall economy? Well, joining me now is Zachary Carabell, author and founder of the Progress Network. Welcome back, Zachary. It's good to see you again. With the House having passed a sweeping Build Back Better bill yesterday, now heads to the Senate. Some economists are arguing this legislation is going to help curb inflation. How do you see it?
Oh, no, I don't think we can hear anything. Can y'all hear anything?
I'm not sure this particular bill has much impact on inflation. First of all, a lot of the spending is over a whole bunch of years. Secondly, like universal pre-K and 4 weeks paid leave. You know, those are not really inflation triggers. They're really good things. They're just not inflation triggers. They're not really price triggers. I suppose the $500 billion or so spread out over a bunch of years for clean energy and solar could over time reduce inflation if it reduces the cost of electricity and energy consumption for people. You know, that's certainly an input into some of the inflation.
I didn't have
fuel and energy.
The thing going.
On the whole,
we're gonna start back over.
Will do its best to spin this.
Second installment of President Biden's domestic agenda finally cleared its first major hurdle in the House. The $1.6 trillion bill includes everything from education to healthcare to fighting climate change. But what effect will this have on the overall economy? Well, joining me now is Zachary Carabell, author and founder of the Progress Network. Welcome back, Zachary. It's good to see you again. With the House having passed a sweeping back better bill,
I think I was sure I had my TV on mute, so I thought I didn't hear anything. So
some economists
are
arguing this legislation is going to help curb inflation. How do you see it?
I'm not sure this particular bill has much impact on inflation, period. First of all, a lot of the spending is over a whole bunch of years. Secondly, things like universal pre-K and 4 weeks of paid leave, you know, those are not really inflation triggers. They're really good things. They're just not inflation triggers. They're not really price triggers. I suppose the $500 billion or so spread out over a bunch of years for clean energy and solar could over time reduce inflation if it reduces the cost of electricity and energy consumption for people. You know, that's certainly an input into some of the inflation numbers, the cost of fuel and energy. But on the whole, I'm sure the White House will do its best to spin this as a counter-inflation package. I just don't think this is really that relevant to the issue of inflation, which is largely short-term in my view and not structural anyway.
Okay, well, I'm going to build off of that and look at a little bit of good news here, because this is according to Reuters, where you have rating agencies saying that Biden's spending plans are not going to add to inflationary pressure. And the fact that the unemployment rate is falling, retail sales are surging. You have about 2/3 of Americans feeling their situation is okay to good. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is whether people, like, there's a lot of PTSD about inflation from the 20th century. So any hint of it, and there's kind of a collective, oh my God, the inflation demon has been reawakened. We've been waiting for it. It hasn't manifested itself in 20 years. And now it's about to reappear and ruin the system, right? That's kind of the fear trigger of inflation. I'm on this camp. I think actually the Federal Reserve is largely correct, which is the inflation we're seeing is byproduct of 19 months of COVID, a lot of pent up demand. You know, people were biking in their Pelotons and sweatpants. They weren't traveling. They weren't buying stuff. Holiday sales last year were okay. So there's a lot of people who want a lot of stuff, and there's a global supply chain that wasn't ready to provide it. And that's a lot of what's going on with inflation. The question, though, is will people believe it, right? There's the feeling and the fear of inflation, and then there's the reality of inflation. And right now, the feeling is absolutely more powerful than the reality.
Yeah, well, in our effort to get out of our sweatpants, we have the latest government data, which shows retail purchases did increase 1.7% in October. That's the biggest monthly gain since March. What do those numbers tell you, and what they signal for the holiday season?
Right, so that's back to that reality of a lot of people are buying a lot of stuff, and we had a supply chain, a COVID-era supply chain that just wasn't set up for that kind of demand, and it's going to be a problem for Christmas. And people are already seeing this. I mean, if you want to buy a game console, if you want to buy a TV, if you want to buy a sofa, although I don't think a lot of people buy sofas and wrap them under a Christmas tree. But the point is, there's a lot of stuff that people are going to have a hard time buying in the next 2 months, including Christmas. But there's going to be a lot of demand for that stuff, and that, I think, is the world we're going to be in through the holidays.
Okay, so basically, what I'm reading from what I just understand from, I guess, what I understand from, from what I just seen, like, like this bill, could possibly help us. But what I just don't understand, like, or where I need to go to read about, like, what is going on in the bill. Because I understand, like, Republicans, they pretty much say no to anything, but what I personally want to know, because things are getting pretty hard out here. Gas is extremely high, especially where I am. I'm in Indiana right now. Gas is extremely high. I went back to my hometown in St. Louis, and the gas was, like, the cheapest I had saw out here. There, I was like, oh snap, you know what I'm saying? Like that, like, I just let me find another video about. She had all this stuff already loaded up, but this is our first video. We're gonna work together on this. How we gonna work together, and we are going to learn this together. Now it's on the way to the House, and here it go. Rachel Maddow, Bill Back Better features some looking for measures, some ongoing review. So let's see what the bill features. All right, so let's pop this on. I have to get me a mouse because what is the Bill Back Better? What did I just did? Okay, all right, bet I got the right one.
So we've been watching these sort of passionate, dogged, relentless, nonviolent direct action campaigns over this particular bill for months now. It really has not let up. Just this week, there are protests and marches and direct action in Washington, D.C., urging Congress to finally get this bill done. And tonight, we are seeing the results of, among other things, that pressure by all those thousands of Americans who participated in those things. Here we are now. I mean, that's the walk that you walk, but here's where you get at the end of it. I mean, what the House is going to pass tonight, this is, hearing aids finally being covered by Medicare. Finally. A hard cap on what anyone on Medicare has to pay out of pocket in any 1 year for their prescriptions. That seems reasonable. Why didn't we do that before? Also, finally, relief for Americans who use insulin. Insulin used to be cheap. It has recently become not only not cheap, but totally unpredictable in its pricing. Some people's outlay going out over $1,000 a month. If you need insulin, it's not like optional. You need insulin. Well, now,
right.
The cost for anybody
you
who
need
insulin.
You need insulin. It's not something you can go without. You know what I'm saying?
The first ever federal paid leave program. You have a family member who's sick, an older parent or grandparent who's had some sort of medical crisis, or maybe you've got the happy news of a new baby in the family. 4 weeks paid family and medical leave. The first federal family and medical leave program ever in this country. Also preschool. Preschool now available for all kids in the country, for all 3 and 4-year-olds. And way more support for kids to get free meals at school. And money to fix up crumbling and out-of-date school buildings. Pell Grants that help people pay for college. Pell Grants will be more now. We're so short on healthcare workers in this country, but now we're going to support the National Nurses Corps and the National Health Service Corps. That should help with recruiting more healthcare professionals. We need more teachers, right? This funds teacher recruitment and training all over the country. And as I said, for people with disabilities or for older folks who want to stay at home, but who need some help, this is the first time we are going to invest as a country in people's ability to get help at home so they can stay at home with a little extra help instead of having to go to a nursing home or having another institution if they don't otherwise need to go. 800,000 Americans on the waiting list for that kind of care. They're finally going to be able to get that kind of care supported by this bill. It's also, as you've heard, the biggest investment in climate resilience we've ever had as a country. That includes the biggest investment ever in climate and weather forecasting and research. Yeah, that would be better if that was better. We're also going to make the post office vehicles electric now. You know that mail trucks get 10 miles per gallon? Why aren't the post office vehicles all electric vehicles? This bill will do that. Also trash trucks, also school buses. That should have been done a gazillion years ago. We will finally get to it now with this bill. Pipes for drinking water that are made of lead never was a good idea in the first place.
Right.
But here's finally billions of dollars to take those lead pipes out and replace them with water pipes that don't poison our kids anymore. Finally. Also increasing our vaccine production capacity as a country. That seems like it's well in time, right? Yeah, maybe we're a little overdue on that one. Rebuilding and modernizing our ancient and out-of-date VA facilities for our veterans. Why has it taken so long for us to do that? So many veterans facilities are 50 and 60 and more years old. And I mean, that's like not even the half of it. For most of this stuff, it's like, how did none of this get done before?
Right.
But never mind that now. We know. If you watch the people who did everything they could, everything in their human power to get it done, it's easy to see that it took moving heaven and earth to get us to the point where we are going to do it now.
So I was just watching like a video on how China is basically trying to take the place of number one in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like they invest into our allies around the country, and I think they built a college somewhere with one of our America's allies, and now like they looking more towards China than us. And I just feel like America, we can be so much further if we all just focus on the right things, and we can just stop focusing on stuff that should have been figured out long ago, like years ago. And I just I agree with everything inside, like the Build Back Better plan. I consider myself like a conservative in many ways, but I just feel like we need to just go ahead and fix like the stuff that needs to be fixed so that we can move on and remain like the number one power in the world. And as of right now, we're just not that. We're not number one, even though we say we're number one, but in my eyes, we're not number one. I love America, but as somebody who can see that we can do a lot more, we can do a lot more with America. Like we can do a lot more than what we've been doing. So Moving on to this Kyle Rittenhouse situation that we got going. He was just he just was let off by the juror as not guilty, and he had just recently sat down and did an interview with Tucker Carlson on Fox News, and we're going to take just a couple of minutes, and we're going to sit here and watch some of the things that he said. And I think with Kyle, I just feel why. Only thing I have a question is why did you come to a peaceful demonstration with a gun to protect property that nobody asked you to protect? Nobody called you, but you sat there and you shot people, and you say that it's self-defense, but I don't know. I just feel, I don't know. Let's see what he has to say.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. In retrospect, it's remarkable just how dishonest, how thoroughly and intentionally dishonest the media coverage of the Kyle Rittenhouse story turned out to be. All of it was a lie. Rittenhouse was not a white supremacist. He was never in a militia. The protest in Kenosha was not peaceful. It was a riot, chaotic and violent. Many of the rioters, by the way, carried guns. Rittenhouse was hardly alone. Rittenhouse didn't go to Kenosha looking for trouble. His father lived there. Rittenhouse himself worked as a lifeguard in Kenosha. On August 25th of last summer, Rittenhouse went downtown to stand guard over a car lot. Here's the context. The night before, police in Kenosha had done nothing as the mob burned businesses, including another car lot all the way to the ground. So the business owner needed Kyle Rittenhouse's help. He was looking to a 17-year-old for help, if that gives you some perspective on how bad things were, and he asked for it. As Rittenhouse stood there, rioters threatened his life. Then they attempted to kill him. In the end, Rittenhouse shot 3 attackers as he tried to run to the safety of the police. A number of media outlets claimed the men Rittenhouse shot were black. In fact, all 3 were white, and all 3 had serious criminal records. We could go on. Again, the media coverage was, from beginning to end, a tapestry of lies. If you watched the trial last week, you know that. But what about Kyle Rittenhouse himself? What is he like? Apart from his testimony in court, few Americans have ever heard his voice. Over the next hour, we're going to let Kyle Rittenhouse speak for himself. You can make up your own mind what you think. But before we start, one observation, which you can't resist making. It's hard to ignore the yawning class divide between Kyle Rittenhouse and his many critics in the media. Rittenhouse comes from the least privileged sector of our society. During high school, he worked as a janitor and a fry cook to help support his family. Last year, he got into college at Arizona State, and he's very proud of it. In the world Kyle Rittenhouse grew up in, it is not a given that kids go to college. It's not even close. During the course of our long conversation, Kyle Rittenhouse struck us as bright, decent, sincere, dutiful, and hardworking. Exactly the kind of person you'd want many more of in your country. He's not especially political. He never wanted to be the symbol of anything. Kyle Rittenhouse just wanted to keep violent lunatics from setting fire to cars. In the America he grew up in, that was considered virtuous. So if Rittenhouse seems a little bewildered at points during our interview, thinking back over the last year and what happened to him, that's probably why. A lot of the things he assumed were true about this country turned out not to be true at all. So in that way, he speaks for many of us. Here's Kyle Rittenhouse. So tell me, Kyle, how you wound up in Kenosha that day.
Well, it actually started on August 24th. I was working my job as a lifeguard at the Recplex in Kenosha County, and then the riots were still going on and a curfew was implied. So I went to Dominic Black's house and I stayed the night over there and saw the videos of the riots and the arson going on.
What'd you think of it?
It was upsetting because Kenosha is my community. And I just was upset seeing my community up in flames.
Yeah, I bet you were. So you're at your friend's house that night. You've come back from working as a lifeguard.
Yes.
And then you decide to go in. First, you're cleaning up graffiti, correct?
Yes. So we say the 9th of August. I say the 9th of August 24th. We wake up in the morning and we're talking. We're like, let's go help our community. Let's go see what we can do. And we ended up at Rittenhouse Central.
I had to pause there for a second. He said, my community. He did want to see my community go up in flames when he's not even from there. Continue.
High school where we were cleaning graffiti for a couple hours, and then we met with the owners of Car Source, and we offered to protect their business from fires, making sure the rest of their other 2 properties didn't get burned down like they did the night prior, and they agreed. We came back. We went back to Dominic's house and hung out there for a little bit, and then we went to Car Source to help protect the property and make sure it didn't set on fire again.
So you get there. What do you see?
When I get there, I see in the beginning, the morning of Rittenhouse Central, I see just spray paint everywhere. I see smoke coming from the Car Source that was burnt down, and it was quite upsetting because that was somebody's business that got destroyed.
Yeah. So you said to the people who own the car lot, I want to protect your cars. And they said, yes, please.
I said, hey, if you, I asked if they needed any help, and they said, yes, if you can.
Where were the police?
I'm not sure really, because they have a hard job.
For sure.
But I didn't really think they got the support they needed. The National Guard should have been called August 23rd, but the city of Kenosha failed the community. The governor, Tony Evers, failed the community, and there should have been a lot more resources to help with that.
That's for sure. So you've been criticized for carrying a firearm into the scene, but it's obvious from the tape that a lot of people, you were not the only one with a firearm. There were rioters with firearms. Was that obvious to you?
Yes.
So you saw other people with guns?
I did. There was a lot of people on both. Like, there were rioters with firearms. I remember one very distinctly. Joshua Zeminski was walking around with a pistol in his hand all that night with Joseph Rosenbaum.
Where did you first see Rosenbaum?
The first time I saw Rosenbaum was the first time he threatened to kill me. It was at the corner of the Car Source lot that I was at primarily that night, and I was asking people if they needed medical, and he came up to me and Ryan Balch, and he said, if I catch any of you MFers alone, I'm going to effing kill you.
Had you ever seen him before?
I have not.
So you'd never seen this guy. He walks up and threatens to kill you out of nowhere.
Yes. It was quite shocking. I was like, why would somebody threaten to kill me? I'm just asking if people need help on both sides. I was there just to help anybody that needed, and shockingly, the only people I helped that night were rioters.
What kind of sense did you get from Rosenbaum? I mean, that sounds deranged.
When he threatened to kill me, I was like, what the heck just happened? I've never, nobody's ever threatened to kill me up until that point. And I was like, that's not something you say to somebody.
How long after that was it that he tried to grab your rifle?
It was about an hour and a half later. And then there was actually a second time he said to the group, he said, this is the second time he threatened to kill everybody. He said, I'm gonna effing kill you. I'm gonna cut your hearts out, you effing N-words.
Cut your hearts out?
Yes.
Did any of the rioters try and calm him down or stop him?
What I noticed is the rioters were trying to, they were disassociating with him because he was spewing the N-word around, and they just didn't seem to want to have anything to deal with him, the rioters.
Yeah. So he comes, he tries to grab your rifle, he gets shot. You decide at that point, unless I'm misremembering, you want to go turn yourself into the police.
Yes. After I shoot Mr. Rosenbaum, he tried to grab my gun. I was running away. There was a gunshot behind me. After I shoot him, I run around the car because I was going to go render first aid to him. I wasn't able to because then there was a mob forming and calling for my execution to get him and kill him. And that's when I try to run to the police line and get to the police. And then I am attacked again.
By the guy who kicked you?
By Jump Kick Man, yes.
Whose identity we didn't know. It turns out the prosecution knew it and hid it.
So we found out November 7th, the prosecution, we went into the judge's chambers and the prosecution said, we identified Jump Kick Man, and the prosecution threw a fit a little bit. They didn't want us to interview him. They were like, well, he's a victim, and didn't want my investigators or my attorneys to interview him or ask him questions. They just wanted to do it private, non-recorded. And the judge said, no, it's going to be recorded. And then a couple hours later, they say, oh, he asked for immunity and we're not going to give it to him. So we're not going to be calling him as a witness.
Yeah, well, probably didn't want to talk about his criminal record.
Yeah.
So you're running, trying to get to the police lines. You see the mob coming after you. Let's execute him, they're saying. And then out of nowhere, you get dropped to the ground by the guy who kicks you in the head. Mm-hmm. Did you see him coming?
I did. To backtrack a little bit, actually, as I'm running, Gage Grosskreutz came up to me with his phone and put it in my face. And he said, what are you doing? Did you just shoot that man? And I told him, I'm going to the police. And he said, oh, okay, and ran off. And I kept running to get to the police. And that's when Anthony Huber strikes me with the skateboard as I'm running before I'm on the ground for the first time. And then I'm hit with a rock by somebody in a white tank top. And that's how I end up on the ground. And I have 4 people around me from what I remember. And I move my firearm in their direction and they back off with their hands up so I don't shoot them. And then Jump Kick Man keeps coming. And that's when I fire 2 shots at Jump Kick Man.
Wow. And you miss him and he kicks you.
Yes.
Then what happens?
After Jump Kick Man is running off, Anthony Huber comes up and he grabs the barrel of my gun and then he hits me with his skateboard holding his trucks. And that's when I shoot him 1 time.
Where did he hit you with the skateboard?
He hit me in the back of the head, in the neck, the back of the head towards the neckline.
Did you think you were going to be killed at that point?
I did.
Then what happens?
And then after Mr. Huber attacks me, Mr. Grosskreutz puts his hands up, and then I have my rifle pointed in his direction for about a second. And then once I lower my rifle, I noticed that my ejection port is opened about an inch, and Mr. Grosskreutz said I pulled the charging handle, which never happened. I hit the forward assist to close the ejection port, and he sees me doing that or something. And this time he runs at me and he has his gun pointed directly at my head.
Did you see the gun?
I did.
What, do you think he was going to shoot you?
I did. He had it pointed directly at my head, and that's when I shoot him 1 time. And he is no longer a threat to me at that point because he ran off after I fired that shot.
Did you realize you hit him?
I didn't know until later.
So then what happens?
There is a person directly in front of me, and I point my rifle in their direction, and he puts his hands up, and he's backing up, and I then turn around, start going to the police, and then I hear shots behind me, and I turn around and briefly raise my rifle to see if I'm being shot at.
And then I realized I can't.
So he's giving his side of the story, and I'm trying to follow what he was saying. He was saying that the jump kick guy. I just want to know. I got to go back and like watch it for myself, and and digest it because it was just a lot going on at that time. Like, because if somebody would just come up to you and say like you're a piece of crap and you're this and you're that and you don't like what they're saying to you, like that's, I mean, a lot of people do that. You don't shoot them and you have a gun at a protest that nobody knows why you're there. Now I understand, like, people may have been destroying things, and I don't know, but I just feel like nobody should have died there. Nobody should have been. Somebody should have died, and then it didn't help that you was going out taking pictures with white power in your hand. Like, you just like come on now, like come on. But going on to the next thing, we're going to Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, and they are in the process of closing statements. But it was one part of the trial that really caught my eye is the testimony of one of the gunmen, and how he said that his life, that Ahmaud did not pose any threat to his life, but somehow you still found a way to shoot him. And so this is him at doing his part of the trial, his testimony, I believe, and this is during the cross-exam. So let's take a look.
At the end of Burford, you and your dad both got out of the pickup truck, correct?
When he turned and started running down Burford, when he was away, when he was not a threat, if he wanted to be a threat and he was going past that, yeah, I got out of the truck. Yes, ma'am. When he turned and running away is when I got out of the vehicle.
Why in the world would Mr. Arbery be a threat to you?
Because of when I asked him what was going on, and recognized that it was the guy that I saw on the 11th, and Mr. Albenzi pointing and everything going down, and realized that it is him, and then how he reacted when I shined the lights on him on the 11th. He acted like he did not want to be. He was obviously caught sneaking through the front yard. He was obviously where he wasn't supposed to be, where he hasn't been several times, and then he reaches into his pants. I think he has a gun, and that I took that as a threatening gesture and walked in the house. Now it's the same guy on the 23rd that I've just pulled up to that turned out my father was correct. People pointing down the road, same scene that this happened 12 days prior, that yes, there was a possibility that he may be armed with that gesture, but he didn't show me that, and he started running down the road. I was no longer under a threat if there was to be one, so I got out of the vehicle after my father got out of the vehicle to see what was going on and watch him.
So when you first pulled up to him, very first time, you confirmed it was him, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You testified under oath to this jury that I'm not going to chase or investigate someone who is armed, right?
That's correct.
And yet you want this jury to believe now that he was a threat to you, okay, and that you perceived him as a threat, yet you continued to chase him down Burford.
I didn't know if he was a threat or not. He never reached in his pockets, and I wanted to see what was happening. I figured I could talk to him at this point, or getting up to him on the second point.
But hadn't at this point he demonstrated not once, not twice, but 3 times he did not want to talk to you?
Which when I'm at the stop, when I stopped the Burford.
Right, because you pulled up to him once, he doesn't want to talk to you. You back up, he doesn't want to talk to you. You pull down Burford, your dad's yelling, cut him off, cut him off. And all of a sudden, he runs back, he doesn't want to talk to you. That's 3 times he's demonstrated to you that he does not want to talk to you, correct?
Yes.
And he's also demonstrated he's no threat to you. He hasn't pulled out a gun.
That's correct.
He hasn't said one word to you.
He has not.
He's not threatened you in any way, verbally or physically.
No, ma'am.
No knives.
No knives.
All right. He's not swearing at you, using profanity or anything like that, is he?
Didn't talk.
So at this point, you get out of the truck, correct?
That's correct.
And you get out with a shotgun.
No, I got out when my father got out to get in the back, and then my shotgun slipped and it was in the floorboard where my feet were all over it. Once I'm out of the vehicle, it was safe to, I'm not going to reach it. I wasn't going to grab it while Mr. Arbery was right there. There was no reason for it. He's run off. I'm on the side of the truck. So at that point, I grabbed the shotgun out of the floorboard and put it back on the seat.
Your dad gets out with his .357 Magnum, correct?
I didn't know if he had it on him or not. I knew he had it, but I didn't see it. He didn't have it in his hand.
So he didn't have it in his hand as he ran about 10 yards down the road after Mr. Arbery.
He didn't run down the road after Mr. Arbery.
You have a private citizen here making judgments about whether Arbery was a threat. Was he armed? Had he committed a crime? Was there reasonable suspicion or probable cause? I mean, all those things being laid on that person, and that's what the prosecutor seemed to be digging down on.
I just say, dude guilty. Dude guilty. He, now the difference between, this case and the Kyle Rittenhouse case, I just feel like it's a huge difference. Like, I believe that, I don't believe, but I don't know what happened with that situation. But it seems like from the testimony from Kyle Rittenhouse that he was attacked by several people. That's where he's coming from with the self-defense. But in this case, they came towards this man several times of property that was not even theirs, and then they ran him down with a gun, mind you, and shot and killed him. That's murder. That's nothing but murder. And it's not cool. It's definitely not cool. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. This is we're going towards the end of the show. And today we talked about the Build Back Better plan. We talked about the Kyle Rittenhouse case. If you want to leave a comment, let me know what you thought about that case, because I really do think I think that is a complicated case, even though everybody think he should be guilty. But that one I just don't know. But as far as the Ahmaud Arbery case, I think that's clear cut and dry, that he straight up murdered those people. Ahmaud Arbery, 3 people murdered him, and they need to go to jail for that. Now that's clear cut. You don't run somebody down because you thought that they stole from an empty house that's not even built yet. What are you gonna take? What are you taking from there? Wood? Did you pay for the wood? It's wood. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you all can do me a favor and head on over to YouTube and like and subscribe. My page name is AKJ Space TV. I don't know why everybody keep thinking to put AKJ TV together, but they're not together. They're totally apart. And this is the first edition of This Week with AKJ. And I will see you next week for the first official episode of This Week with AKJ. I'll see you guys next time.